Wilfred Fizzlebang. This card is hilarious. I really hope that this card has some sort of particular interaction with Jaraxxus, because it would be very sad to miss out on that. But it's a very neat card. I think that a lot of people have been saying, you know, oh, this card's OP or whatever, but basically this card costs 8 before it does pretty much anything, and it does cost 8 to let you draw and play a card for free. But it's also a 4/4 for 6, which is pretty hard to justify running in most cases, and is very likely to die immediately. So I think this is definitely a cool card. It'll be a fun card. I don't expect this to be a card that that really sees a ton of competitive play, simply because in most cases, if you're playing like a deck like Handlock, you don't have that much room for things like this. You have lots of things that you basically need your cards to keep you alive, and your cards to to actually sort of impact the board and kill your opponent. You don't really need that much to sort of have this additional cost reduction type effect of the card that you're getting off of your hero power late game. You have to draw something really expensive for this card to be good. You have to be almost guaranteed to draw like a giant or a Jaraxxus or whatever else in order for you to be getting a ton of value from this, because it is rarely going to get you more than one free card. So maybe it sees play in decks that are sort of Handlock style, or even like big Warlock style that aren't necessarily Handlock, but I would be surprised to see this see a lot of competitive play. Right. Fist of Jaraxxus. So this is like pretty cool. One of the things that that this card does is just make Doomguard, specifically Doomguard, more powerful. In that you often, if you're playing a deck that is looking to just sort of leverage the Warlock hero power, is just kind of trying to get the most efficiency it can out of everything it does. I mean, this is not a card that is good when you play it at all. 4 damage to a random enemy, this is very weak. But if you're playing a particularly aggressive Warlock deck that may want to actually just burn the opponent out with basically Doomguard Soulfire type stuff, I could definitely see this being a card that finds a home in those, because in many cases, if your opponent has no creatures in play, this is just deal 4 to them, often for free because you're discarding it to a Doomguard. But it clearly doesn't have the same utility as something like Power Overwhelming. It's going to be less consistent than some of those cards, but it does give you very powerful burst opportunities in the right context. So I don't think this is an awesome card, but I could definitely see this being played in more sort of aggressively oriented Warlock decks, like Zeus style decks, that are looking to actually have more of a burn component with things like Soulfire, because you can get a lot of damage very fast off of this when you do get it for free. Demonfuse. So I don't get it. This is basically a Demon Fire that can't actually, marginally better Demon Fire in terms of buffing your guys, that can't kill, also be used as a removal, and has a drawback. This is just, I don't know. Like, if you're playing a super aggressive demon deck and you really want the extra +1/+1 over Demon Fire, maybe you want to play this card, but this card just seems not good to me. It has less flexibility than Demon Fire. It has a very big drawback. Giving your opponent a mana crystal is a really big drawback. I mean, maybe there's some sort of charge demon that you end up copying with Faceless or something like that, and this is just a combo kill component to that. But it is hard for me to imagine that this is a card that really sees much play. I mean, this is Shield Slam Face is what this card is. But I mean, a 4/3 for 2 is pretty good, and this is definitely a card that if it were in like Hunter, I actually think maybe this would be a good card, because you just get so much value out of it. But it trades with other 2-drops, and it gets killed by Fiery War Axe, and Warlock is already a class that has ways to leverage its life total significantly. I mean, this trades up okay. It trades up to basically any 3-drop already, and some 4s, but it's hard for me to imagine that this is a card that is likely to be particularly popular. because the format is generally super aggressive as it is, and there are lots of creatures that are on curve. Like 3/2 is a very common stat line for highly played 2-drops. So it's difficult for me to think that this is going to be super effective. But I mean, anytime you have an overstated guy with a drawback, it's worth taking a look at, because this is a drawback that is manageable. It's just damage to you. Compared to something like Succubus, which, discard a random card, is a much higher drawback in most situations, because it messes up your curve, it messes up your ability to continue to present threats. This just deals damage to you, and if you are able to build a deck such that the damage to you is not that relevant because you're pressuring your opponent so much, like for instance, I could definitely see playing this in the same deck as like Fist of Jaraxxus, multiple Soulfires, things like that, because you're just looking to get as much damage out of your cards as fast as possible, and don't necessarily care that much about the drawback. But I don't think it'll see play in most of the sort of Demon Lock style of decks, because, well, they do care about their life total because they're looking to leverage life tap quite a bit, and it can be a serious drawback in the right circumstances. Oh my god, Dreadsteed, oh my god! Here it is, Dreadsteed. I saw this earlier. So 4-cost 1/1, Death Rattle, summon a Dreadsteed. This is a pretty cool card. I mean, obviously, basically, this is just a card that can't die. Anytime it dies, you get another one. And, like, that's pretty cool. As to what exactly you're going to do with it, I don't know. But this is definitely interesting because, it makes it difficult for your opponents to ever like just run you out of minions. If you have things that like buff your demons, or things that care about somehow sacrificing your own demons, if you have Anima Golem, for instance, that really wants you to have a demon or a minion in play, Dreadsteed certainly helps. Obviously you can eventually silence it. It's certainly very powerful with Hobgoblin when you first play it, but unfortunately Death Rattle doesn't work with Hobgoblin because it just puts it into play. You didn't play it for your hand. But yeah, it is very bad against Grim Patron, because they can literally just make infinite patrons off of it. But yeah, this is definitely a cool card, and whether or not it does see like highly competitive play, I definitely think this is a really interesting type of card to exist in Hearthstone, because it's the sort of card that people will attempt to build decks around, and it's important that those exist. So in many cases, especially in a game that has direct attacking as a mechanic, it's difficult to make cards that are compelling, that aren't just sort of stat lines. But this is one that I definitely think people will explore significantly, even if it doesn't end up being in highly competitive decks. It's really cool that it exists.